Presenting our podcast, Got Milk, the Indian Dairy Context, brought to you by Shunya Agritech, India's first animal nutrition and well-being focused organization. Say hello to your hosts, Gir and Sahil.
Okay, so, when we think about India's economy, it's kind of easy to miss the sheer scale of some sectors. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah.
Take livestock, for example.
Right.
It contributes a massive, rupees 6.8 lakh crore every year.
That's huge.
Yeah, that's not exactly small change.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental pillar,
Yeah.
with states like Uttar Pradesh and Rajasthan really leading the charge.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've ever had a glass of milk, chances are it probably came from India.
Probably.
World's top producer at 187.74 million tons annually.
Yeah, it's an impressive figure when you think about it.
It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's kind of unpack this a bit, right? Because underneath these big impressive numbers, there's something else we need to talk about, something pretty crucial.
Yeah.
This challenge of livestock feed and fodder shortage in India.
Yeah, that's right. Those top-line numbers are certainly impressive, but when you actually take a closer look, it reveals a long-standing issue.
Yeah.
One that has a real knock-on effect on the productivity and the health of India's livestock.
Exactly. And it's something that's been acknowledged at the highest levels of government.
Oh, absolutely.
So for today's deep dive, we're going to focus on how seriously the government is taking this issue,
Yeah.
particularly the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare.
Okay.
They actually commissioned a pretty comprehensive nationwide study to really dig into this problem.
Interesting.
We'll also be looking at an innovative approach, a science-based approach, aiming to provide solutions specifically tailored for India.
Okay.
Our main material today is the assessment of livestock feed and fodder, an all-India study,
Okay.
published in September 2021.
All right.
So I guess what's really fascinating here is that fundamental pressure point, right?
Mm-hmm.
India has this enormous human population and livestock population,
Right.
all relying on limited land and water resources.
Of course, yeah.
This kind of intense competition makes ensuring enough feed and fodder not just important, but vital for keeping up that productivity we were talking about.
Absolutely, it's essential.
So this isn't just a minor logistical hurdle we're talking about. This is a major issue.
It is, yeah.
Now, this issue of feed and fodder shortage, as the study points out, it's been kind of dragging down the development of India's livestock sector for a while.
Thanks for a long time.
And there's a stat here that really brings home the economic impact.
Okay.
The cost to feed can be anywhere between 65 and 70% of total expenses in livestock production.
Wow, that's a huge proportion.
Yeah, it's a big chunk.
When you think about that kind of percentage of the production cost being tied to feed,
Right.
it has a direct impact on how viable it is for farmers to even raise livestock.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that impacts the price of milk, meat, and other livestock products for consumers.
Right.
So it's a pinch point that's felt all the way down the line.
Right. And this isn't just, anecdotal evidence or a hunch. Over the years, there have been various reports quantifying these shortages.
Mm-hmm.
For example, back in 2018, in ITI-IOG, they estimated some pretty substantial deficits,
Okay.
around 10% for dry fodder, a significant 33% for concentrates.
Right.
And when we say concentrates, we're talking about the nutrient-dense stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like oil cakes,
Yeah.
grains, and other supplements.
Yes. The stuff that provides that essential energy and protein.
Exactly. And then a considerable 35% for green fodder.
Wow.
And they also predicted that this gap could actually widen
Why is that?
because of this trend of farmers diversifying away from cereal crops,
Oh, I see. Yeah.
moving towards more commercial crops,
Right.
which reduces the availability of those crop residues that are often used as feed.
That makes sense. So that projection from NTI-AGA really raises this question for me.
Yeah,
If those land use patterns are shifting, where is the feed going to come from?
exactly.
It really highlights how interconnected different parts of the agricultural economy are.
For sure. And NIAIOG wasn't alone in raising these concerns.
All right.
There was another study in 2013 by Data
Mm-hmm.
that painted an even more worrying picture.
Really?
Yeah, suggesting even larger deficits.
Like what kind of numbers are we talking?
A massive 61.1% for green fodder,
Wow.
21.9% for dry crop residues, and then a huge 64% for concentrate feeds.
So pretty much across the board.
Yeah. And then there's a 2017 USDA report by Landis and colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
They also show significant shortfalls, about 11% for dry fodder, 33% for green fodder, and 35% for those feed concentrates.
So it seems like there's this consistent pattern of concern across all these different assessments.
Right.
Yeah. What's really standing out to me is the recurring and significant deficit in green fodder and concentrate feeds.
Yeah.
And these are like the most nutrient-rich parts of an animal's diet.
Right.
You know, they're crucial for their health, their growth, their productivity.
Especially milk production.
Exactly.
And here's another striking figure. Only about 4% of India's total land under cultivation is actually used for growing fodder crops.
4%. That's it.
That's it, just 4%. So this limited allocation, well, it just leads to those severe shortages we've been talking about.
Yeah, of course.
The 2021 study we're looking at today estimated deficits of around 36% in green fodder, 40% in dry fodder, and a really significant 57% in concentrates.
Yeah.
So those are some substantial gaps.
Absolutely. Those figures really highlight the immense pressure on India's land resources.
Right.
When you have such a small fraction dedicated to producing fodder,
Yeah.
it just creates this fundamental imbalance.
Yeah, between the supply and that massive demand from the livestock population.
Exactly.
Now, it's really important to understand that the government isn't ignoring this.
Right.
The fact that the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, they commissioned this assessment of livestock feed and fodder in all India study to the Agricultural Development and Rural Transformation Center, ADRTC, at the Institute for Social and Economic Change, ISE, in Bengaluru.
Right.
This clearly shows that it's a serious concern at the national level. I mean, it's likely been discussed in Parliament as well.
Yeah.
And the study had several objectives: to accurately estimate the production and productivity of major green and dry fodder crops,
Okay.
analyze those trends in livestock population growth, and basically to assess the overall availability of feed and fodder,
Right.
pinpoint those areas of greatest deficit,
Okay.
all with the aim of boosting livestock productivity.
So it's a very comprehensive approach.
Yeah, it is.
And the fact that various government departments and agricultural research centers are supporting this study,
Yeah.
it really emphasizes the collaborative approach being taken to try and tackle this challenge.
Exactly. It's
Oh.
not a problem that any one entity can solve in isolation.
No, it's too complex.
Right. And the study even gave some insights at the state level
Oh, okay. Interesting.
about where that fodder cultivation is concentrated.
Right.
As of 2014-15, Rajasthan had the largest area dedicated to fodder crops,
Okay.
a significant 53.93%.
Wow.
Gujarat followed at 9.36%, with Uttar Pradesh at 8.39%,
Okay.
and then Haryana at 4.60%.
So you can really see a concentration of fodder cultivation in a few key states.
Right. Rajasthan's dominant position is notable.
It is. Why do you think that is?
Well, it could be a combination of factors, right?
Mhm,
Like larger land holdings that are suitable for fodder crops,
Okay.
maybe established traditional agricultural practices, and specific climatic conditions that favor certain types of fodder.
That all makes sense.
Yeah. And then if we look at the national picture,
Mm-hmm.
the total area under fodder crops in India was about 9,137,000 hectares,
Right.
which, as we said, is just 4.61% of the total gross cropped area.
Tiny.
Yeah. But the study also looked at how this has changed over time.
Okay.
Between 2005-06 and 2015-16, there was a national increase of 1.68% annually in the land dedicated to fodder crops. Again, Rajasthan showed the highest positive growth at 6.79%.
Wow.
However, it's not uniform across the country.
Oh, really?
Yeah, several states like Haryana and Karnataka
Yeah.
actually saw a decrease in the area for fodder cultivation.
So that decline in fodder cultivation in states like Haryana, which has a substantial livestock population, that's a concern.
Right.
It probably reflects shifting priorities towards more lucrative crops,
Yeah,
which could really intensify that fodder shortage in those specific regions.
exactly.
Yeah.
Now, looking ahead, the study projected the livestock population to reach a considerable 573.27 million by 2030.
Okay.
And based on this, they foresee a significant overall deficit in green fodder, a mass of 33,562.9 million tons per year.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah. Interestingly, their projections actually indicate a potential surplus in dry fodder,
Oh, okay.
around 2,295.42 million tons per year.
All right.
And also in concentrate feeds, with a surplus of about 1,033.67 million tons per year.
So there are some bright spots potentially. But I'm curious about those overall surplus figures. Are there any nuances there?
Yeah, there are. The study highlights that there are likely to be species-specific deficits.
Let me see.
So, for example, they project a deficit in green fodder
Huh.
specifically for cattle and buffalo.
Right, which are the backbone of India's milk production.
Exactly.
So even though those aggregate numbers might show a surplus, the animals that have the highest nutritional demands might still face shortages.
That's exactly right.
It's a really important distinction.
Yeah. And this actually brings us to another critical point.
Okay.
There's often a disconnect between these statistical projections and the actual experiences of farmers.
Right.
The study points out that despite the numbers suggesting potential surpluses, farmers often report facing persistent shortages.
Yeah, I can see how that would happen.
And this discrepancy could stem from a number of factors.
Like what?
Lack of real-time information and awareness about where that fodder is available.
Okay.
Challenges in transportation and logistics to move it from those surplus areas to the areas that need it.
Right.
And the lack of well-established and efficient market mechanisms.
Oh, yeah, connecting the suppliers with those in need.
Exactly.
And that last point about market mechanisms is really important.
It is.
Because if farmers who manage to produce surplus fodder, if they aren't confident they can actually find buyers at a fair price,
Right.
they're not going to be incentivized to invest more in fodder production.
Exactly.
And then on the other side, if farmers who desperately need fodder can't access those available supplies because of logistical hurdles or lack of market transparency,
Right.
then those surplus figures don't really translate into anything practical on the ground.
Exactly. It doesn't help them.
Yeah.
So given this clearly defined problem and the government's active engagement in understanding it, the next question is, what can be done?
Right. What are the solutions?
Well, the study really kind of implicitly underscores the need for innovative solutions. And that brings us to an example of a science-based approach that's being developed and customized for India
Okay.
to address this feed shortage challenge. Shunya Agritech.
Shunya Agritech. Okay.
Now, the study itself doesn't go into the specifics of their methods,
Okay.
but by highlighting the deficits and the limitations of current practices,
Right.
it strongly suggests the type of approach that's needed, one that's rooted in scientific principles and adapted to the unique agricultural and economic realities of India.
So the fact that a government-commissioned study actually lays out these challenges and the shortcomings of current systems really highlights the importance of supporting these kinds of innovative ventures.
Yeah, absolutely. It signals a recognition that new thinking and science-backed solutions are crucial for moving forward.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
if we go back to those core issues identified in the study, it emphasizes the need for improved fodder productivity.
Right.
Currently, the average yields for key green fodder crops like berseem and lucerne,
Yeah.
they range from about 60 to 130 tons per hectare.
Okay.
But a lot of other important fodder varieties have much lower yields.
So there's a lot of room for improvement there.
Right. So this suggests a big opportunity to boost production from the same amount of land through better agricultural practices and potentially new, higher-yielding fodder varieties.
Right. And with Shunya Agritech's focus on this science-based approach tailored for India,
Yeah,
they could be focusing on maximizing fodder output per unit of land.
exactly. And given those limitations on land in India, enhancing productivity is essential.
It is. And science-driven approaches can explore all sorts of avenues.
Right.
You know, things like optimized nutrient management for fodder crops,
Right.
Implementing water-efficient irrigation techniques,
Mm-hmm.
and breeding programs to develop fodder varieties that are not just higher yielding,
Right.
but also more resilient to the local conditions and potentially even more nutritious.
Exactly. Another critical area highlighted by the study is the lack of awareness among farmers
Okay.
regarding best practices in fodder cultivation,
Right.
particularly post-harvest management, like silage making.
Yeah, which is crucial for preserving the nutritional value of green fodder for later use.
Right. And the study recommends these need-based extension programs by agricultural universities and those Krishi Vigyan Kendras, or KVKs.
Right, those agricultural science centers.
Yeah. And an entity like Shunya Agritech could also play a role in bridging this knowledge gap
Yeah.
by developing effective ways to disseminate information and training to farmers.
Absolutely. Effectively transferring that knowledge and building capacity at the farm level,
Yeah,
that's essential for widespread adoption of these improved practices.
for sure. Farmers need the right information, the skills, and the confidence to implement these advancements on their own farms.
Exactly.
Now, there's also this incredibly important aspect of making the most of crop residues.
Right.
The study points out that they constitute a massive 54% of the total feed available to livestock in India.
Wow.
However, farmers often lack the training and understanding to utilize these residues effectively.
Okay, so there's room for improvement there as well.
There is. And this is another area where a science-based approach could really provide value by offering guidance and solutions for processing and supplementing those crop residues to enhance their nutritional content for livestock.
So optimizing that utilization of crop residues not only helps bridge that fodder gap, but also contributes to a more sustainable system.
Yeah, it reduces waste.
Exactly.
And finally, the study emphasized the need for better market mechanisms specifically for fodder.
Okay.
Maybe something like the ENAM platform for other commodities.
Right.
The idea is to create a marketplace that connects those with surplus fodder to those who need it,
Yeah.
creating stronger price signals, incentivizing production, and improving access.
So it's about creating that efficient and transparent system.
Yeah. And while Shunya Agritech might not be directly focused on building a market platform, their solutions aimed at increasing fodder availability could help make those market mechanisms more viable in the long run.
Absolutely. Because a robust market is essential to give farmers those incentives to invest in fodder production.
Exactly. It addresses that concern that there might not be buyers for any surplus they produce.
Makes them feel more secure.
Yeah. So stepping back, looking at the big picture, the government study really highlights those challenges we're facing with feed and fodder shortages in India.
Yeah, definitely.
But it also calls for innovation, the development and implementation of science-based solutions tailored to India's unique context.
Absolutely.
And while we don't have all the details about Shunya Agritech's technologies from this study, it's a promising example of the kind of forward-thinking approach that could help bridge this gap.
It is. And the study itself provides a really thorough assessment of the problem by highlighting those key areas needing improvement.
Yeah.
Enhanced productivity, greater farmer awareness, better utilization of existing resources, stronger market linkages.
It really lays the groundwork for where these innovative solutions can have the most impact.
It does.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with this thought.
Right.
Considering the projected increase in India's livestock population in the coming years, and those constraints on land and water resources,
Of course.
how crucial will those technological and scientific interventions be in ensuring the sustainability and productivity of India's livestock sector?
That's a big question.
It is. And what roles can we all play, from farmers to policymakers, in fostering that kind of innovation and adoption?
That's what needs to be answered.
It's a complex issue with huge implications,
It is.
and one we encourage you to explore further.
Hope you enjoyed this episode of Got Milk, the Indian Dairy Context. Subscribe to the podcast. And a reminder, this episode was brought to you by Shunya Agritech, India's first animal nutrition and well-being focused organization. Thank you, and see you in the next episode.